This man hails from northwest Arkansas. I still remember maybe this small town called Gravett, Arkansas. And so many times they say, what good could come out of Gravett? But they've shown some good things that have come from this great city of Gravett, Arkansas. A man that has served this state and our nation with distinct honor. A man that is committed to education and higher education in this entire state to move us forward, who's committed to economic growth. Someone who's had steadfast leadership, someone who's shown us to show what steadfast stewardship truly means in a nation that truly needs to see the example of what's going on in Arkansas. And that comes from committed leadership. And so I introduce to some and to all our governor, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
What a great mayor. Yeah, give Mayor Frank Scott another round of applause. And it's really exciting for me to be able, as governor, to work with a mayor who understands economic development, who is there whenever we're needed, and we work together in partnership. And I love all the leadership that he's provided. And then thank you. We have a couple different committees, I think, that are represented here in different ways, all engaged in the interest of the United States Census. And of course, we have the State Complete Count Committee, and I'm delighted to see former Representative George McGill, now Mayor of Fort Smith, here. Where's George? Mayor McGill, thank you for your leadership. And we have a number of other members of the Complete Count Committee that's here, that's given of their time, whether it's county judges, mayor that we see, county clerks, but also representative of different parts of our community that's important to be engaged in making sure everybody is counted. Now, Mayor Scott mentioned that I hail from Gravett, Arkansas. Well, everybody comes from somebody, somewhere. And you remember your days in school, and very simple, we go into class, and today is probably electronic, but the teacher would simply call the roll, and whenever they're finished calling the roll, what do they say? Have I missed anyone? Right? And you think about how fundamental and simple counting is. But in our society, we like to count everything. But all the time that you conduct a counting, at the end you say, have I missed anyone? And those words are important for us today as we look at a constitutional responsibility to carry out the United States Census. And so each of you are engaged in something that has lasted in our country for more than 200 years, that is set forth in our United States Constitution as a responsibility. And so before there was technology, before there was digital transformation, before we had all the federal money that is allocated out, our founding fathers said, let's count it. Let's make sure we count every 10 years our population in the United States. And just think about how difficult it was there with Daniel Boone moving all over the place. I mean, it was hard to count them back then, but somehow they got it done, and people participated in it. And so thank you for serving Arkansas and the United States and being a part of history and taking the census that's been accomplished for more than 200 years. The information you collect is very important for Arkansas in so many different ways. Most importantly is the allocation of fair representation in the political process. We're going to go through an exercise that we do every 10 years, which is to reapportion or make new districts for our state Senate races, our state legislative races, and our congressional seats. And the census will determine how those are divided, and to make sure that we have the fundamental principle of one person, one vote, and adequate and fair representation. I know that there are other states that are concerned about losing population, or at least losing a % of the population, which means they will lose part of their federal delegation and their congressional seats. Because we know that Florida is growing, Texas is growing, and they're going to gain more congressional seats. We only have 435. So where are they going to come from? They're going to come from some other states that are going to lose representation. Now, I remember back in the, maybe I don't remember, maybe I studied this from history, back in the 50s and 60s, that Arkansas lost population. And we used to have, how many congressional seats do we have now? 4. How many did we used to have? 6. Who said 6 over? 6. We had 6. Not that you remember that. We had 6. And because of other states growing faster than Arkansas, are we losing population, we are now at 4. The other interesting fact is the shift in population. I do remember the old 3rd Congressional District that was represented by Congressman John Paul Hammerschmidt. And whenever I first got involved in the political arena, his district went from northwest Arkansas, Bentonville, Rogers area, down to DeQueen. DeQueen used to be in the 3rd Congressional District. And because of population shift, that district has shrunk. And so you can see the importance from a federal representation standpoint, how important the counting is. And then, of course, everybody thinks about dollars. And whether you're a city, or whether you are a county, or whether you are the state, or whether you're simply a program, the allocation of federal dollars in many different arenas is established by the census count and what those census numbers represent. A simple variation of 1% in an accurate count in our population could cost Arkansas nearly $1 billion over the next decade. Now, I'm pretty good at math, so that's $100 million a year. And so that's a lot of money that is at stake in the work that we get done. And so we have fewer than 90 days to prepare to count Arkansas. And although April 1 is officially Census Day, the 2020 count will begin next Tuesday when Census Bureau Director Stephen Dillingham travels to Toksook Bay, Alaska, to count the first person. Toksook Bay is a remote fishing village on the Bering Sea. The Bureau is starting there in January because the ground will still be frozen. And travel to Toksook Bay and other remote villagers will be impossible later. And so they start when the ground's frozen. The count in Toksook Bay symbolizes the Census Bureau's commitment to count every person in the United States. Now, Arkansas has places that will allow the Census Bureau to demonstrate its commitment to count. Shelby Johnson is here, who's Director of Geographic Information Systems Services in the state of Arkansas, Vice Chair of our Complete Count Committee. And we asked him, what is the most difficult area of Arkansas to make sure we can have a count? Now, he's not politically sensitive, so he actually answered that question. If you would have asked me that question, I'm not going to pinpoint somebody that is remote in the state of Arkansas. But he did pinpoint someplace that was remote, that might be hard to make sure that we get every isolated community that would be counting. And so you have to ask yourselves the question, though, why in this constitutional exercise, why in this that is so important to Arkansas in our representation and in our federal dollars that are returned, why would someone not participate in the census? Now, I just outlined about 3 reasons. One is that it takes too much time. Now, the census team has done a good job in trying to simplify the census and to make sure that it doesn't overly take the time of those that are filling it out. And so we've got to overcome that obstacle, though. We got to make sure it's efficient, and one of the reasons is they're doing some of this online. The second reason that they might not be counted is simply because they don't know about it and they don't make the effort. Well, thank goodness the federal government is spending, I think it's about $500 million in an advertising campaign that will begin soon that will cover, I think it's 98% of the population in terms of making sure that everyone is aware of the census, that we're doing this, and that they need to be counted. But we have to work in those isolated areas particularly, or those that are busy in their life and do not follow the news, that this is ongoing, it's a responsibility, and we need to complete it. And then the third reason that some people might not participate in the census is fear. You know, it's fear that perhaps will be a misuse of the information. They don't trust the federal government. And so we have to be able to work one-on-one in those difficult communities and give them confidence and assurance that they do not need to fear. And so that is really what I think the fundamental responsibility of those in this room is, to make sure that everybody understands the facts, because the greatest antidote to fear is truth. Amen? And so we get them the facts, we try to give them confidence, and we overcome that. Now, this is a very important year for Arkansas for the census, because just in the last couple years, for the first time in the history of Arkansas, we passed the 3 million mark in population. I like when a state is growing. One of my goals is to grow Arkansas, and to grow us in terms of job creation, but also simply in terms of population. And we have a lot of people that have moved into Arkansas. And we actually did a study as to actually the states that have more in-migration than out-migration. And we all have kids, and we know that when kids get their education, they like to travel a little bit, and so we have out-migration. Then you measure the in-migration for those kids that are coming back to Arkansas. And our in-migration is exceeding our out-migration, and we're growing as a state. I'm also actually concentrating on that effort. We recruited one business to Conway, DXC Technologies Company. They are located there, the old Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. They had about 400 employees. We made an announcement that this global company chose Arkansas to expand their workforce by 1,200 over the next 3 years. These are all technology jobs. The CEO is from London, England, of this business sector. And he came in for the announcement. I asked him 2 questions. I said, first, why did you pick Arkansas to do the expansion? You have many different choices. And his answer was, well, because you have a computer science initiative that's leading the nation. You're creating a talent pool of people that can work in software development and digital skills. So we got the pipeline for talent. We like that. And then he also, talked about our workforce in general. He talked about what we're doing in higher education. Then I asked him the question, though. I said, of the 1,200 new employees at DXC Technology, how many of those will be coming from out of state? And you think as governor, oh, you want to create all the jobs here. Well, I do, and I want to get jobs. I like, though, for people to be selected because of their talent and what they're needed in that enterprise, and they move to Arkansas. His answer was 40% of the 1,200 new workers will come from out of state. That is 480. And that's 480 that will be buying homes, that will be buying groceries, that will be paying more taxes to support our education, and they will contribute to our economy in this state. I love that balance. Now, our question to those 480 employees over the next few years, have you been counted? Did we miss anybody? We want to count everybody. And so it's new residents, it's those that have been brought here over the last few years, and we're counting on you to help us to make sure that everybody is counted. And I look at the advertising campaign at the federal level that I think will be comprehensive. And our work is really community to community, group to group, and to encourage them to be a part of the count and make sure they outreach. So ours is sort of a grassroots effort here in Arkansas. I solicit your support for it. I know you recognize how important it is. You're giving of your time and energy. So thank you for making sure that Arkansas has a complete count and that we reap the benefits from that complete count as well. Thank you very much.